So, I'm Drew Paul Bell, and today I want to talk to you guys about sleep. I'm actually standing at the Chattahoochee River here in Atlanta right now. Nice peaceful place. That'd be a great place to talk about that. I've noticed in school, in architecture studios, that we tend to, as a culture, kind of over-glorify the all-nighter. We think it's cool to not get enough sleep, and we think we're martyrs for working so hard on our projects. But I really see this as being a problem. I've noticed in myself, and also in like everyone else in my studio, throughout my 4 and 5 years of school, that there's kind of like a drop dead time. What usually happens, like the night before a final review, you'll come into studio, and around about midnight, everybody's there, it's nighttime, and there's a lot of activity, and everyone's all hyped up because they're still energized from the day before, and they're like, man, I can do this all night, let's go. But then around about 4:30, you're 4 hours later, you're 4 hours less on sleep, and all of a sudden you don't want to be there. Like it always hits me between 4 o'clock and 4:30 that I just do not want to be in studio doing work. I just want to be in bed and asleep and relaxing and sleeping. But ending up being in but I obviously still have to be there in studio. So what happens after that 4:30 dead time is the next kind of phase of the night seems to be everybody zoned in, working on their work, not saying anything to anybody else, just completely like zoned in but not effective. And the reason why that happens is because we're so tired we can't communicate with somebody else. We're also not really functioning on the projects that we're doing. And then that's when it hits you that like next thing you know it'll be 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you look back and you realize, wait, it took me 2 to 4 hours to do that? Like, the productivity that happens during that time is not at all related to what you do during during the waking hours. So people fall in the trap of thinking that in this time, oh, they got 4 hours, they can get as much stuff as they get done during studio when they're in class. That's not the case. And you're also in kind of a paradox because you're so tired. A lot of times you don't even realize how slow you're going. So it's really ineffective for working. So what are the options? I think instead of pulling an all-nighter and just soldiering through it and thinking that you're going to be effective, it would be smarter if you look at the situation, look at all the stuff that you have to get done and the time you have to do it, and you realize that you would be lucky to get 4 hours of sleep instead of working through and trying to get 4 hours of sleep at the end. Go to bed early at like 8 o'clock at night, sleep from 8 o'clock to midnight, get 4 hours of sleep before, then go into studio and work on through to the next day. What's going to happen then is by having that sleep before your work rather than after it, you're going to be more charged up to get that stuff done, and you're going to be more productive. Now, you're still going to get hit with fatigue and being tired in the next day, but if you have to get it done, that would be a much better, if you have to get it done by like early on in the afternoon or early morning, that would be a much more effective way of scheduling your sleep. The next thing I want to talk about is a thing called polyphasic sleep cycles. I've tried this before. I've tried the going to sleep at 8 a.m., going to sleep at 8 p.m., waking up at midnight thing several times, and it's been pretty effective. There's another thing called polyphasic sleep cycles I want to talk about. Poly means many, phasic means phases. So that means rather than getting 8 hours of sleep in one block, in one chunk, instead you break that up and you get maybe like 3.5 hours of sleep or 3 hours of sleep in 2 chunks. Now the reason why that only adds up to 6 to 7 hours rather than 8 is because when you're a little bit more fatigued, your body will slip into what's called REM sleep much faster. Now you see in sleeping there's like the 4 different stages, phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's where your body gets repaired. That's where you build your muscle, that's where you build back up your fatigue from the day. Then in REM sleep, it's called rapid eye movement, it stands for rapid eye movement sleep. That's when your brain's repairing itself. That's when it encodes information, and that's what you need to function mentally. So if you're going to the gym trying to bulk up or whatever, don't do this. If you're putting a lot of mental strain on yourself, and that's the biggest problem, then this might be worth a shot. So rather than 8 hours, two groups of 3. This is one way to split it up. There's a lot more really intense ways, like rather than 2 groups of 3 is like 6 groups of 20 minutes. And I haven't gone that extreme. Buckminster Fuller actually has one he called the Dymaxion sleep schedule, where it's like 4 groups of 30 minutes each. Now to me that looks a lot more appealing than having to wake up 6 times, But and some of you guys might be hearing this and thinking it's ridiculous, and it is kind of ridiculous. I was kind of playing around with like the dual phasic sleep schedule, two different groups. My schedule was such that I could get about 4 hours of sleep, get up and go. I think it was actually running at the time too, and then sleeping again in the afternoons. And again, this really only worked for me on Tuesdays and Thursdays, not Monday, Wednesday, Friday when I had studio in the afternoon. But I tried to make it work the best I could. This, my experience with it was only okay. It seemed like I wasn't as unproductive as just not getting enough sleep for weeks on end, but I kind of found that it was more of an excuse to not get enough sleep and not feel bad about it. But when it comes down to crunch times, I'll end up slipping into this every now and then, like coming into final exams or midterms. Sometimes it makes sense if my schedule allows. So I just kind of want to offer that to you guys as some options. It's just that, you know, I see these kids all the time, especially first years and second years, who don't get enough sleep, and it's like they brag about it. And when I see that, I saw a guy a few months ago who had pulled his first all-nighter as a first year, and they're like, man, did you get to sleep? Did you pull an all-nighter last night? And he's like, you know it, and he was all stoked about it. And like, when I see that, what that looks like to me is kind of like when somebody drinks so much that they drink so much alcohol that they get alcohol poisoning, and then they wake up in the hospital the next day, and then the first thing they do is tweeting about how much alcohol they handled the night before. It's like, that's unhealthy. It's not good for you. There's no sense in martyring yourself over it. And I don't think it makes you any more hardcore. I don't think it means that you care anymore about your project. I think that it would be better to kind of not find yourself in a situation like that. So, and I know that last minute, right before, you know, if you're watching this with a review tomorrow, this is probably a little too late to, and if it already is 3 o'clock in the morning and you haven't taken a nap, this might already be a little too late. But if that's your case, if you're in that situation, I would recommend doing like 20, 30-minute like little power naps. Try to just rest your brain, meditate even, and make sure you got a good alarm clock or somebody to come get you and get back to work if that's absolutely necessary. But best advice would be to try to avoid that situation as much as possible. So remember, don't over-glorify pulling all-nighters. It doesn't make you cool. Around about 4:30 is that drop dead time when you're not going to be productive anymore. So plan around that. Plan to get to bed before that, if you can function on that little sleep. And what else was the 4 hour? Get your 4 hours of sleep, or whatever, however many you're going to get. Try to get that before you go into stay up super late. That might be more effective for that time. And try out that polyphasic sleep cycles if you want. Let me know what you think. I'd be really interested to hear somebody else's experience with it. So anyway, hope that all helps. I'll talk to you next time.